All right, in today's lesson 4 on box plots, we are going to first off talk a lot about this image up here. So I want you to make sure that you are writing in all of these different terms. So there are 3 terms that you should know from previous lessons, and those are minimum, median, and maximum. The minimum is going to be your lowest number in the data set. Your median is your middle number. And then your maximum is your highest number. Now let's talk about the 2 that might seem unfamiliar to you. And that would be the lower quartile and the upper quartile. With the lower quartile, you are actually going to find the median again, but this time of just the lower half of your data. And then for the upper quartile, this is going to be the median of the upper half of your data. I also want to talk about some synonyms that you might find when answering different types of questions. And those synonyms are really for lower quartile and the upper quartile. So a lower quartile can also be called a first quartile. And an upper quartile can also be called a third quartile. So same meaning, same data point that you're going to find. It's just those are different types of words that they could be referred to as. And then the last thing I want to talk about is in this box plot, it is sectioned into 4 spaces. And those 4 spaces represent what we call percentiles. So the 3 we're going to focus on is the median, which is in the middle or at 50% of your data, your lower quartile, which is at 25% of your data, and your upper quartile, which is at 50% of your data. Now let's go ahead and talk about this example using all the things that we've talked about above in those 5 different data points that we need to find. So we're talking about migrating distances of birds in thousands of miles, and we're given this data set below. The first thing that you're going to do with any data set that you are given is you are going to put those numbers in order from least to greatest. So we're going to start with a 1. There's 2 2s. There's a 4 and a 5. There's 2 6s. There's a 7, 8, and a 9. And you're going to see a big jump over to 18. And I actually want to kind of stop, and I want to talk about this number 18 as another definition. 18 is what we call an outlier. And in a data set, when we have an outlier, it skews our data to one side versus the other when we're talking about averages or medians. And so an outlier is something that is just not close in proximity to the other numbers in your data set. So we can kind of see that 18 kind of hangs out way further away from 9 than 1 does from 2. All right, so now with that, the next thing we're going to do after we order these is we're going to find the median. And when we do that, I want you to make sure that you do not cross out these numbers. So I would suggest that you use a dot when you go back and forth to find the middle number. And circle that middle number once you get to it. And our median here is 6. The next 2 easiest data points to find are your max and your min. So for this data set, our top number is 18 and our bottom number is 1. Moving on to the two that I kind of talked about, lower quartile and upper quartile, and you not really knowing how to find these. So we're going to abbreviate those with UQ and LQ for upper and lower quartile. And those are, again, the median of your upper or lower half of your data. The one thing that you need to remember is that the median, which you already found, the number 6, cannot count in either your upper or your lower half. So what I like to do is put these little boxes around the numbers that are actually counting in my data set, and then I can go ahead and find the upper or lower quartile. So let's start with that upper quartile. So we can actually cross these out, going back and forth, and we locate that middle number, so that's 8. And then we're going to do the same on the lower side, and that number is 2. So what are you going to do with these 5 data points? They are going to help you construct your box plot. So we're going to go ahead and put those below the number line. So they do not have to be on the number line. You can put them below it or above it. I only have really room below. So I'm going to go ahead and plot the median at 6, the maximum at 18, the minimum at 1, the upper quartile at 8, and the low quartile at 2. And if you notice, I try to get them as even as possible going horizontally. Then you're going to connect, draw a line, draw a line, draw a line, connect, and then you're going to connect the top of your box. And there's your box and whisker. And we're going to go back and talk about that outlier. So that outlier there, you can see, because it's over here on 18, it kind of skews that box plot by giving it a really long side, and then the box is nowhere near the middle, which is what you would expect when we're talking about averages. But because of the outlier, that kind of throws our median or our averages kind of off. All right, now that we've talked about how to make a box plot, let's talk about how to read a box plot. So in Class A and Class B, these students are talking about the number of downloaded songs in a month by 2 7th grade classes. And we're going to answer 4 questions about them. So which class has the smallest range? So that means we need to locate our maximum and our minimum for each class. So I'm going to highlight those in blue. And then off to the side, I'm going to write that subtraction problem. So I'm going to say 8 minus 2 gives me a range of 6, and 9 minus 1 gives me a range of 8. So I can clearly see that Class A has a smaller range than Class B. Now let's look at their medians. So the median, again, the middle number, so I can find it in my box plot right directly in the middle. I'm going to highlight on the number line those numbers as well. And so when I'm looking at which class has the largest median, I can clearly see Class B is one further number at 6. So Class B has the larger median. When we talk about similarities and differences, honestly, you can name a bunch of different answers here. So I'm going to give you 2 examples out loud. You could write your own. What similarities do I notice about the 2 classes? I notice that they both have a data point at the number 6 for Class A that represents its upper quartile, and for Class B that represents its median. So that is a similarity. For question number 4, how are the 2 classes different? There's a lot of things different. You could even go back to your range and say Class B had a range of 8, Class A had a range of 6, or you could use something completely different, like the median is 5 and the median is 6 for Class B. Many differences. Similarities a little harder to come by, but you could again compare 2 data points and say where they fell on those box plots. So you can fill in any of the ones I mentioned, or you can come up with your own here. So what I want you to do is I'm going to have you pause the lesson, and I would like you to try to make another box plot on your own and then come back and check, and I'm going to walk through finding those 5 data points. All right, so if you've tried this on your own, let's go through and we're going to find our 5 data points. So we're going to find our median, our maximum, minimum, our upper quartile, and our lower quartile. So remember, you want to put these numbers in order least to greatest. So I'm going to do that right above it, starting with the number 11, then going to 13, 15s, 2 16s, 20, 21, 29, 2 30s, and I noticed I left out 23, and this might happen to you. All you need to do is go in and you can either erase, make sure it goes in the right spot. I'm gonna kind of move this down. Oops, I grabbed that other 2. It's okay though, I'll use it for the 23 and make that 29. And that could be something you do too, so that's a good way to show you how to fix that. All right, so again, we're gonna find the median first. I'm gonna use a different color here, going back and forth. And I see that I have 2 numbers in the median. So remember, I wanna add those up. Divide by 2, and I get 18. I am gonna write that above here in this space. Sorry if you ran out of room there. So what's different about this is that you wrote in a median. So that actually means that 16 and 20 are gonna still split into your lower and upper quartile because they were not the direct median, so they can be counted in your data set. So before I get to that, let's go ahead and do our maximum of 30 and our minimum of 11. And I'm gonna highlight kind of that stops there. Actually, I can use another color. Let's use red, and then 20 to 30 is the upper half. All right, so when I'm finding my upper quartile, again, I can cross these out left to right, and I come up with 23 and 29. So 23 plus 29, and that gives me 42. That doesn't make sense. Let's add again. 52. Divide that by 2, and I get 26. So that's going to be my UQ, or upper quartile. And then I'm going to go through here, cross out, and I get 15. So I know that has to be 15. And now I'm going to put my data points in. Again, this can go above or below. If you notice, I'm running out of room, so I'm going to move this work. If yours gets in the way, you can put it below. And I'm going to put my minimum, my lower quartile, my median at 18, my upper quartile at 26, and my maximum at 30. And I'm going to connect, line, 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 connect, and then make the top and the bottom of my box. And if you notice, because there's not a huge outlier here, this box plot ends up kind of more centered than the previous one. All right, so make sure that you go back and review this if you need any helps on any of the terms.